Yeah, sorry. That's my soapbox. My soapbox.
Yeah.
My
It's
box
big
of
stuff.
soap.
Soap. Soap.
Mackenzie, I got this new soap.
I want to take a bath with my soap.
Would you like to take a bath with me? Ugh, I can never get over the guy from season 3 who flirts with Maggie on the train, and he's like, "I'd love to call you. I think about that line constantly. I'd love to call you." And then she gives him her fucking number. Like, that works. Why? Maggie. Hello and welcome to Chats, a television podcast, Season 5, DaisyChatz. My name is Alan, and I'm joined by the acclaimed author of Ghosts, Prisoners of Consciousness. It's Magellan.
Oh yeah, hello. How are you doing?
Oh my God, Magellan, you wrote a whole book since we last recorded.
Yeah, I spent some time in early 20th century Germany, and I learned a lot about psychology and just the way the brain works and death inside, and so...
Did you notice anything else when you were in early 20th century Germany?
No, it was rather, just sort of growing national pride.
Yeah, it was...
Some harmless militarism, but otherwise not a big deal.
No, like, movements or sort of, like, significant figures in the culture that were kind of taking rise in that time?
I see what you're saying, and, I think maybe we're separating each other by some decades for the sake of me not talking about Nazis.
Let's talk about Nazis here on the... No!
Finally got there. Hey, man. How's it going, man?
Hi. Is this you at, like, midnight on a Friday at the bar that I frequent, like, coming up to me and then, like, putting your arm around my waist?
Man.
Hey.
It's really great to do a podcast with you, man.
I just love it.
Yeah. We watched the show, huh?
We also hung out together. Sorry, just people... I always get comments that are like, I like it when you guys talk at the beginning, but not too much, or else fuck off. So we hung out. It was great. I loved seeing you. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, and now I'm gonna go see you again soon. It'll be fucking sweet.
Sweet.
Yeah. So here on DaisyChatz, we watched the show Pushing Daisies, and this week we watched 2 episodes: Season 1, Episode 5, Girth, and Season 1, Episode 6, Bitches. First, we're going to be discussing Girth, which was written by Catherine Lingenfelter, directed by Peter O'Fallon, and it aired October 31st, 2007. Spooky Halloween episode. Magellan, what happened?
In this episode, a farmer is trampled by a flaming horseman. He is later revealed to be Lucas Shoemaker, a famous horse jockey in the same circuit that Olive was in. She hires Emerson to solve the murder using her jockey winnings, and the gang heads off to solve this spooky crime. Shoemaker reveals that he was killed by John Joseph Jacob, his jockey rival. The name causes Olive to pass out on the spot, leading the gang to believe that he was important to her in some way. After interrogating the other jockeys and JJJ's mom, Mama Jacobs, they conclude that there was foul play amongst the jockeys at some point. Olive reveals that Jacobs was the best rider out there, so Olive and the other jockeys trampled him to end his career. Seeking revenge, the overprotective Mama Jacobs set out to kill each of the jockeys who ruined her son's life. Turns out, Jacobs wasn't killed in the accident. The doctors replaced his broken legs with his horse's legs, so he spends his life living in his mother's basement. When the gang finds him, he is shocked by his mother's actions and helps them trap and arrest her once and for all. The B-plot is about Ned for once, and how he misses his father despite his abusiveness and emotional distance. He visits his father's grave and mourns the fact that he never had a father figure in his life. And he visits Lily and Vivian to talk and enjoy some pie that he made, but they realize something is wrong. Vivian comforts him with the assurance that he is not only allowed to grieve for his father, but that it is healthy and good. And that's the episode.
Wow, so This is a weird one because I thought that the Halloween plot was fun and it fits really neatly into that tradition of network television shows doing a Halloween episode. Even it's actually especially procedural shows tend to do that a lot. I remember the Bones, one of the Bones Halloween episodes, and like House does a Halloween episode, and I always think of it as like they have those blocks of commercials where it's like a lightning strike and then a wolf howl and then like on this special episode of House and then someone just dies and they're like, guess we gotta figure it out.
Right.
And it feels like those, at least the A plot does. It's really simple and there are some good performances and it's kind of neat to learn about Olive and her past in a way that isn't related to romance or anything like personal. It's just like this is a hobby of hers. This is a career of hers rather.
Mm-hmm.
And then the B plot is where we get and it clashes a little bit because the A plot is so silly, but the B plot being about Ned genuinely trying to confront his feelings for his father who has passed on it's really good stuff. It just feels weird in this episode in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that they took that trope of like holiday episode where, you know, this is a show about a guy who brings dead people back to life temporarily. So it would make sense that they would do something super spooky for a Halloween episode, but it's not that. It's actually pretty heartfelt and personal, and it takes him and his powers out of what's essentially going on in the story. And I appreciated that move. Because it's kind of a subversion or a commentary on like, oh, you think we're going to do a holiday episode, but actually he doesn't like all the decorations. Yeah. The A plot was, I think silly is the right word. I'm still trying to figure out like what it is that I'm looking for in a Pushing Daisies crime of the week story, because I don't know, like, I don't think I want this show to be a crime procedural, you know? That's like the least interesting part. And it's fun, the ideas that they come up with and these kind of harebrained stories that they tell. But it felt like there was no reason for it to be Olive's backstory.
Yeah, you can kind of plant that onto anyone.
You know? And so because of that, I didn't really have much of a connection to it. Because it's just saying like, oh, this character that's been around, by the way, for 10 years of her past that you never saw, she was a horse jockey. It's like, okay, cool, great. So you're going to just kind of fill in that blank of her past arbitrarily for the sake of this episode plot. I don't know. I wasn't moved by it in any meaningful way. But it was fun. You know, I had fun.
It's weird because the stuff the show decides to like hit you with the emotions of is obviously consistently the relationship between Chuck and Ned, and sometimes the reveals of like the villain's motives, but not really. But it's mostly like Chuck and Ned is like the emotional center of the show, and I think that there could have been a lot of good actual drama and pathos about learning about Olive and why she is the way she is, why she chose to be a jockey. Like this is just a thing that they tick off as like we now have told you something about Olive.
Right.
And they don't address the fact that like she's the only woman in that whole group, and they don't like, and maybe it works that they do that. Like they don't make a big deal out of it, and that's kind of the point. But like we don't know. I don't know. I feel like I don't know anything new about Olive other than the fact that she likes horses, and that's cool.
Well, and it's also like, hey, she was involved in like trampling a man to death and covering it up for a decade or something.
And they only sort of get into that. Like of her interiority during all that.
Yeah. And like I don't want like a serious guilt-ridden reflection on like I murdered this man. Oh my god. But it also it is tricky for the show to find that balance of like how serious death is and how serious murder is, because the entire tone of it is very whimsical and silly. So, when it's a main character that we're going to keep seeing over and over again, for that main character to be involved in trampling a man to death, it's like, I don't know how to take that, or if I should even be remembering that next week, you know? Is it ever going to matter again that Olive was a jockey for a while? Probably not. So then why did she need to be one to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason is so that the villain will eventually turn their weaponry, whatever, their attacks towards a main character. And that we're like, it's not just stakes for these randos that we don't know and have to learn to like this episode. It's someone we know and like. Like, oh no, that's stakes, I guess.
Right. That's true.
But in exactly the same way, when they are investigating the body of Lucas Shoemaker, Chuck understands him despite his mouth being trampled over, and she mentions that the reason for that is because she worked in orthodontics, and
no, because she had
braces for a while. So no, you're right, because she was like in those orthodontist offices a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing where it's like, oh, this just works because it's convenient. Like, I learned this because it's good to know.
But that is more characterful than learning that Olive was a jockey, because it gives us some window into Chuck's past and her self-perception. Because she makes some joke about like, my aunt said it was birth control or something, you know?
Oh,
like
yeah.
It tells you a bit about the relationship and what her growing up was like.
That's true.
Whereas with Olive, it functionally doesn't change Olive's character to know that she was a jockey versus not. There isn't a functional difference in the way that we view and perceive Olive, which maybe that's fine. Like, not everything that you learn about a character has to be character altering.
No.
But
sorry, I didn't mean to scare you.
No, you didn't cut me off. I think I'm still just trying to figure out what exactly I want this show to look like, and I don't know that I have a good answer to that.
Because the plots like this, just in isolation, feel like, oh, I'm watching another like pretty good network show with a good premise and some good performances.
And but I'm having fun watching it.
Like these episodes don't make this show a cult classic. It's moments in this episode that do, and it's the like Ned stuff with his dad that I actually think is really good. That's the stuff that I really like. I think we're in agreement here that when this show is about its characters and not about crimes, then it's really good. Right.
But there's still fun. Like, it's still fun for it to be about crimes sometimes. Like there's reasons that there's a reason there's a lot of those types of shows, because it is just a story that works. You know what happened. You think you know who did it. You find out that it wasn't them. Turns out it was this person. Whoa. That works, and it's engaging to watch. But it's not, you're right, it's not what makes a show special. Something that like everybody talks about and comes back to all the time. Because there are plenty of other shows that do that and that I've enjoyed, but that I don't hold up as like my favorite shows ever. You know, like Psych or Castle, or I don't know. There are procedurals Chuck. Like that, or Chuck, or Chuck's a little different, but on a similar vein.
Yeah.
But there are procedurals like that where, you know, I've enjoyed watching them, and maybe I'll go back and watch them again, but they're not in like the top 5 or the top 10 TV experiences that I've ever had. And Pushing Daisies seems like a show where at times it has the potential to enter into that, like that upper echelon of shows. And at times it's like, yeah, this is a pretty good kind of quirky version of this thing that other people are also doing.
Yes, totally. And I'm fine. Like, we're obviously finding stuff to talk about, but in the question of, like, does this show often being just a crime procedural make it a bad chat show? I think it's still fun to talk about, and I think it's cool for us to flex our muscles. Like, we just came off of a very episode-to-episode show where the plot is the whole season long.
Right.
And so now it's kind of refreshing to remember, like, actually, most popular shows are not like that. Or they are in 2018, but they weren't for a while.
And I think that there's still a lot of rich ground with this show when you think about like the broader themes of the entire series, and you think about the character relationships and what they represent. I think that there's more here in this show than there is in similar shows of its ilk. But what I'm finding is maybe the episode to episode experience is not always like a amazing, transcendent, whatever, which it's a show, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Speaking of like characters and seeing them develop through the week to week plot, I want to talk about Emerson real briefly.
Yeah.
In this episode, when they go to one of the people who ends up getting murdered, one of the other jockeys, he's like the Pinky or whatever his name is. He is a bartender, and when they all get in there, Emerson comes up to him and he's like, "We don't serve your kind. I don't like seeing your type of person in here." And you're like, pushing daisies. Hey, sup? What are we doing? And then the joke is that he doesn't like tall people because Pinky's very short and Emerson is very tall.
I see.
What did you think about that?
To be honest, I didn't
catch that?
No, I didn't catch it. Yeah.
It's quick. It's pretty quick. It's just the reason I thought of that was there's that, and then there is the Emerson code switching scene in the second. I think that's the second episode.
Yeah.
Like they're using, and it's still. I want to hold this show to a standard. I think I still have a problem with Emerson just being the token black person.
Yeah. Well, I don't. It's tricky because he isn't in every moment that.
True. But often he is used for humor as that.
Right.
And it's weird. But alas, I mean the episode does a lot of other stuff, like there's a lot of talking around murder sites, and then people get scaring each other because it's a Halloween episode. Ned goes to his haunted childhood home, and we learn that the reason he doesn't like Halloween and the reason he has this weird relationship to his home is because one Halloween night he went outside, his dad wasn't there, and then he was walking around and he saw his dad with multiple other ladies.
What?
Right? Well, doesn't he see his dad and he's like, "Oh my god, my dad."
No, well, he gets when he's at boarding school, he gets a letter.
Yes.
That's like, "Hey, I moved." His dad moved.
Yep.
And then he goes to find him and sees him with a family with two
That's
kids
what it was.
and a wife.
I'm sorry. It's multiple other people, not almost other women. Excuse me.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty sad.
It's handled in a way, and I think it
was handled in a very storybook way.
Yeah, it's like, and then look what he found. It's his dad and a whole family.
Yeah.
It pays off at the final scene of the episode, though, which I really liked. Because the final scene being Chuck goes up to her aunt's house and does trick or treat, but she's dressed as a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kind of because I think that the scene where he sees his dad is putting in his head that he's making an association with going out trick or treating as being negative. Because it was this, I would argue, kind of traumatic moment for him seeing all of that.
I would not argue with you there. It is very traumatic.
Right. So he has this horrible association with the holiday and with trick or treating and with dressing up and all of that. Yeah. But then to flip it around and make the person that he loves doing something that makes people feel good is it's incredibly heartwarming to see that.
Yeah, it is nice. It's true. And I like the idea that is taken away from Ned's story, where the narrator says something about Ned realized that there was something he missed more than his past. It was his present.
Yeah, that's the line.
That's there's something in this episode about I don't know if it connects to the A plot or not, but about just learning to let go of things that have hurt you before because they're keeping you from enjoying the things that you have now. There's a nice message there.
Right, because in that scene, that's the whole scene where Aunt Vivian is like, you need to, you're allowed to feel bad, even though you didn't like your dad. You're allowed to feel bad that you're thinking, you're allowed to think about him and grieve him and be sad that he's not with you anymore.
Yeah,
in which you had a father figure. You can do both of those.
And then she smooches him on the cheek 3 minutes after she admitted she was a sex addict or something.
Yes.
So there was a charge. There's a little charge in that scene.
Yeah, a couple of protons and electrons for sure.
Yeah.
They investigate Pinky's murder because Pinky's the next one to get killed, and then they find out that there's some race fixing, and this is when they learn about Olive's whole situation. And the reason I felt dumb. When they're like, "Oh, how did they sabotage it? Oh, we messed up his girth." And then I just typed it to Google girth, and it was the thing that a jockey sits on, idiot, Alan, is what it said on Google.
We just showed it to you in the episode visually.
Yeah, it was that thing. Yeah. What? Get off of Google and watch the episode, Alan. Why is this? Why'd you do that? So we know about that, and then we get the whole stuff, all the stuff with his mom, Mama Jacobs. I felt weird about her. She's a weird villain.
Yeah.
She's super mean. Like she's a villain, but she's so awful in that first scene where she's like criticizing Olive for the way that she dresses and like being like promiscuous because she wears low cut shirts and being like, my son was better than all you fucking bad people, and you're like, oh god, she's appropriately slimy for like in the way that old women can be.
Mm-hmm. It's just making a villain out of a certain kind of like helicopter mom who wants their kid to be the best at any cost. Which, yeah, I don't really know. I like to try to look for a literary reason why villains are characterized in a certain way, and maybe you could make the argument that like if the story on Ned's side is about like the damage that can be done by a parent not caring enough, then in the A plot it's the damage that can be done by a parent caring too much. Maybe that was intentional. I don't know if it was or not. I guess it doesn't matter.
No, I think so though. I think that's a really, really good read.
But that's like the best reading that I have. And so then you meet her son, and you can sort of see the effect that has on somebody. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thought that it was very storybook and very exaggerated, like the way that he was characterized as this kind of like boy who never grew up.
Hamish Linklater plays that extremely well, and I did not expect that.
Yeah.
Because we just came off of seeing Hamish Linklater in the newsroom as like Jerry Dantana, very serious newsman, yelling about how
drones and stuff.
Drones and the government is corrupt and we're killing people in the Middle East. Like, whoa. And now he's like, but Mama never let me do the thing, and now my horse trampled me, but I have nice horse legs. Like his specific delivery of these, of like being very quiet and like, I don't know, something about the way he was speaking was like kind of creepy to me in a fun, like an interesting way.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, this guy is he's a little boy in an adult's body. An adult's upper body with fucking horse legs. Such a weird thing.
Yeah, I like that.
They film around it so they don't have to show it too much, but it's definitely, you're like, oh, yep, that's why his height's weird. Okay. Why did they medically think that was a good idea? And I don't know. It's 2007, baby.
Yeah.
So there are oyster crackers at every murder scene, and they're like, who could do that but an old lady? And then they find...
Well, no, they thought it was him because he like needs them because he has low blood sugar or something.
Oh.
And then it's like, oh, it's hereditary. Blah, horse flame.
They never explain why her horse shoots flame.
Yeah, they don't.
It's just a thing.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Okay.
Awesome.
And then, just the final sequence where they take her out is kind of fun because it's like outside and she's chasing Olive, and then like Emerson just whacks the horse with a shovel and flips over. It's great. It's good. It's very, again, very Scooby-Doo.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. It does feel very Scooby-Doo.
And she's in jail. John Joseph Jacobs is allowed to go and finally live his life. And then Chuck trick-or-treats at her aunt's house dressed as a ghost.
Yeah. And also Olive and Ned kiss.
Whoops. That's not going to have any repercussions literally the next episode.
Whoops.
Wait, yeah, that's when he rescues her, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was like reading about that in the when I was writing the summary for the next one, and I was like, wait, when did they? Because I had spent a couple days between watching these and writing summaries.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, wait, when did he kiss? Oh yeah, that was a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what we got. I have some brief trivia if you're okay with that.
Bring it on. In it to win it.
Cultural references. When Olive sees the corpse of John Joseph Jacobs' horse in the grave, she says, "A horse with no name," which is a reference to the 1972 song "A Horse with No Name" by America.
Right.
And then Olive and Chuck argue over the tale of Hansel and Gretel, which is about two children getting lost on a trail. That's it. That's the reference. Then it just describes what happens in that story. And there's actually no trivia for this one. I like reading the cultural references though because I miss a lot of them, and it's fun to like look up look at those extemporaneously.
Yeah.
Also, here's a goof. Pinky McCoy can be seen breathing before Ned touches him. Good stuff. Good catch. And I think that's what I got for this episode. Any other stray notes?
The horseshoe indent makeup was super creepy.
Yeah, it was like gray.
totally unbelievable, but also like
Yeah, and people like getting up and you don't see their face, but then when they turn, they have a huge horseshoe mark and they can't talk, and you're like, ugh!
Yeah.
but Pinky can talk because the horseshoe was on his head. It's weird.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I got, though.
Me too, man.
Let's take a quick break, and let's read some feedback. So we got some emails, Magellan, and we're going to read them here on the podcast.
Great.
I would like to start by summarizing this very long, very good email that we got from our friend Old as Your Omens, which she sent to us recently. And basically, she says, I pre-warned Alan, but as I found both of these episodes, and she's referring to 3 and 4, I believe, to be pretty, to be pretty meh, she says, I'm going to do a deep dive into costumes, particularly around Chuck and Olive, because holy shit, there are some memorable ones. And the historical fashion geek in her is giddy.
Awesome.
So, she mentions that she wrote her common app essay on this kind of stuff, and it shows because there is like research done. She has a whole point about how the lipstick that Chuck uses is one that she's wearing at the same time, and also like the history of this lipstick, and how her dresses are from the Dior collection in the 40s and 50s, and all of her clothing is like from a like post World War II era of fashion where women had to look very carefree or chose to look very carefree, and all of their clothing was very loose and fabricy because people were trying to decompress after a very stressful several years, and try to like make things seem like they were all right when they weren't, which I think describes a lot of that era of America, and it reflects in her fashion in a way that Omens argues also reflects her own mental state, and the fact that she had a very tumultuous life and then has a real life and is dealing with all that. So her outfits carry a lot of weight in Omen's mind, which is very cool. And then she talks about the 1960s housewife, or the 1960s Olive. She isn't one for Chuck's clean, classic femininity, and to be quite honest, she reminds her more of a Barbie doll. She's much more sexual, but hidden under a veneer of sweetness that instead of being clean looks childish. The light blue baby doll sundress she wears while visiting the aunts is almost sickening and reminds me of a nightgown. But Chenoweth has great legs, so you can see what the point was. It's the same goes for her pie-hole uniform, which is tailored, but still a lot less modest than all of Chuck's dresses. It being bright green plays her as somebody who wants to stand out, and her costumes mark her as both a foil to Chuck and her mirror.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. I think that, because we were just talking in the first half about how the show, not at its worst, but at its most like middling, is just a good crime procedural. And I think we talked about that last week, and you said that what sets the show apart immediately is its look. And it's not just in the way it's filmed, the way that's filmed like an art film, or its sets. It's also its costumes and the way that the characters dress and carry themselves is very unique and very fresh and very colorful.
Yeah, well, and it's, costume design is a really important part of television criticism that I think you and I don't necessarily talk about very much because we don't have the expertise. But this email is indicating to me that it is a way of entering into a discussion about this show that illuminates the characters and how they're meant to relate to each other, and also how their costumes represent themselves. I'd be very curious to know what Omens thinks about Emerson's, like, his suit choice in the episode we're about to talk about, where it's like this like tie-dye purple button shirt underneath this like gray checkered suit thing. It looks totally bizarre, but obviously bizarre with a purpose. So yeah, costumes are definitely something to watch as the show goes on, seeing how they continue to iterate on that pattern and on those characters.
It's super good. I think she actually mentions in that email that at some point soon she's going to write more about Emerson.
Perfect.
So
love to hear it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about all of the looks in the second episode. But we got another email, Magellan. Do you want to give the kids that?
You can do it.
All right. So our second email is from our buddy Hugo, who says, because this is sort of a response to our last reading of his email. He says, I sure do remember being on your podcast, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh, Hugo.
Oh. Back in the day, he says, I used to describe this show as my weekly little slice of happiness. Oh, it's quite dark, and as you picked up, there are problematic elements, especially if they're thought about for any serious amount of time, and I'm sure the decade of hindsight also helps, but it's all hidden underneath a charming veneer. It's in a sense part of the appeal, though. It's pure escapism where even the show's problems are quickly solved in quirky ways. It doesn't dwell on them, and you can forget them as well as your own. Ned and Chuck are kind of the ultimate long-distance relationship. They can fulfill each other's emotional needs, but not in a physical way. I think we talked exactly about that last week, so that's a good point, because we talked about it. There, he moves on and says there are full versions of those songs on the soundtrack, by the way, like the They Might Be Giants song.
Yeah.
He says, I believe they included them on the soundtrack, so I suppose they did try to make money to pay back for the licensing. He also mentions that we raised an interesting point about gay characters in this time period. As a Canadian, where gay marriage was first legalized in 2003 before it spread to the whole country in 2005, I feel like I had a different response to this. Gay characters do exist within the world of Pushing Daisies, as they should, and this is all well and good. He says, despite being gay myself, I didn't find myself craving to see a gay relationship play out on screen, not within this world, at least. It would have been nice, but I recall thinking it wasn't necessary. But then again, as I said, from my perspective, gay marriage was already a won battle, and that definitely changes things. Even when watching American shows, it's hard to put myself into the mindset of an American because while our countries are very similar, they also differ in several ways, including gun rights and LGBT matters. And he concludes, I don't think Chuck is necessarily trapped with Ned. Should she choose to leave him and move to another town, I don't think he would try to stop her. So that's a good point. I feel like sometimes when we're on a roll, we'll just like say a lot of stuff and just like drop a lot of takes. And there is definitely still an argument for Ned and Chuck's relationship being a little bit one-sided, but it's our point at that time, I believe, if I remember right, was more that it's not one-sided in the way that other male-female romances are.
Yeah, well, I don't think her being trapped relates to whether it's one-sided or not. I think I said that, or at least I believe it, and the reason that I do is because she is somebody who is supposed to be dead, and so it would be hard for her to go out into the world and navigate being someone who's supposed to be dead. So that traps her in a way with Ned, who understands the situation and who can help her to conceal in strategic ways the fact that she is the girl who died.
Yeah. That's my favorite character in Harry Potter, the girl who died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. His sister.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait. Yes?
Because he's the boy who lived.
Oh, yes. And then, that's the seat. Yeah. I was gonna say, I think that's a very good point also about the like gay representation in the show, because it's not that it needs it. It's that, and I'm sure Hugo knows this, but like the importance of representation is to normalize behavior that people in the real world have, to where they don't feel alienated watching other relationships on the screen.
Yeah.
Because eventually, if you are not seeing anything resembling yourself on TV for long enough, you other yourself. And this is as somebody who has been othered in a lot of ways. You kind of see and you go like, oh, I guess my experiences are either somehow less valid or less relatable.
Less common or, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the whole reason that people make a big deal out of like why we want to see more different types of relationships is we want it to be normal for everyone. We want everyone to have the feeling that we do, where we get like a butterflies because we've all been attracted to someone the way that Ned is attracted to Chuck.
Right.
I think it's that simple. But
yeah.
So that's the feedback that we had this week. You can, as always, send your emails to chatspod@gmail.com or tweet at us at chatspod and send your feedback there. And with that, we're going to be right back to discuss bitches.
Hello and welcome back to DaisyChatz. The second episode we watched this week was Season 1, Episode 6, Bitches, written by Chad Gomez-Creasy and Dara Resnick-Creasy, directed by Alan Croker, and it aired on November 14th, 2007. Alan, what happened in this episode?
In this episode, Ned is having complicated feelings about infidelity and being physical with Olive after she kissed him last episode. This week's murder concerns Harold Hunden, a polygamous dog lover who falls onto his own knife several times after drinking poisoned coffee. The gang splits up to interrogate each of his 4 wives. Hillary, the dogwear fashion company owner. Heather, the pet psychologist. Simone, the obedience school owner. And Hallie, the seeing eye dog trainer. The wives quickly catch on to the questioning, and together they visit the pie hole, where it is revealed that Hallie is the one who gave Harold the cyanide coffee. In jail, Hallie says that it was rival breeder Ramsfeld Snuppy who killed her husband, so the case is reopened. Snuppy plans to clone Hunden's super hybrid dog Bubblegum and distribute the dogs throughout the country for big money. The women claim that Snuppy killed Harold to prevent an injunction against the purchase of Bubblegum. Meanwhile, in his sleep, Emerson realizes that he has feelings for Simone and visits her to investigate things. After he finds out that Simone is the one who kept Bubblegum, she knocks him out. And after using the adrenaline from his fear of the dark to break free, Emerson brings Ned with him to Hunden's funeral. It is there that they bring Snuppy back to life to see who will flee from him, and it is actually Hillary who was behind it all along. She was Harold's first wife, and unhappy that he married 3 more times, she turned her love and affection towards Bubblegum. She kills Hunden for revenge and is sent to jail. Chuck and Ned are happy, not touching anyone else, as they tuck into their separate beds. Whew, I liked this episode. I thought it was great. Not amazing, but like very good. This show is very successful when everybody gets to do their thing, and when either as a group or solo, as long as everybody gets their moments. And this episode is designed around everyone getting a moment. Like with Chuck, she gets to visit one of the wives, and she pretends to be blind. And the fact that her wife is the one who picks up on her lie very quickly, and she just stops trying to do that, is a very Chuck thing to do. She's like, oh, whatever, you know I'm not. I'm like here to ask you questions. It's very funny, and Emerson falling in love with Simone is interesting, and obviously leads to him getting to have a lot of like plot movement this episode, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
And you know, Ned and Olive getting to do her own investigation, and Ned getting to do his own thing. It's all fun. I think the polygamy means that we get it splits the people up in really good ways.
Yeah, it creates a nice structural conceit for the episode, and ultimately it makes it about love. Like, the show is at its strongest when it's about love.
Yeah,
and it's meditating on exactly what love is, or what it means, or what it should mean.
Right. There isn't much judgment about him being a polygamist, about Harold Hunden.
Yeah, it's not taken as weird, because the core question of this episode is, like, at least the way I understand it, is obviously different people can give us different things, and, like, is that okay? Mm-hmm. You know, is it okay to want different things from different people at the same time? Is being with someone about, like, the things you want, or is it about the person? And at what point is the person not giving you the things you want grounds for you saying, like, well, I'm out of here, you know?
And then it becomes like a moral thing. Like, do you love this person enough to be able to put aside your problems with them, or the problems with the things that they're doing? Or in the case,
and not even problems, but more like, there are certain things that you know that you need, mm-hmm. that you're not getting. And at what point do you say, well, I need these things, versus maybe I don't need those things, and I want to stay with this person.
Yeah, and then the wife who decides that, like, well, I'm annoyed that this guy married a bunch of times. Instead, I'm going to put all of my love, all of my care is for this dog, and I don't want this dog to be cloned, and I want to have this unique thing just for me. Like, she puts Bubblegum on a pedestal, and they end up it makes the dog into, like, the center of the, like, if you track the money of this episode and, like, where is the crime happening, it's all about this dog and, like, wanting to make profit. And I think that's another angle that I liked in this episode, was the idea that there are people who want to make money for bad reasons, and then there are people who just want to make money not for reasons, but because like, we live in a society where you are better off if you are comfortable with the amount of money you have.
Yeah.
Like, so Emerson, for example, like, you have Snuppy, who is like a greedy capitalist who's like, I'm gonna make millions off of these bred dogs. It's gonna be awesome. But then you have Emerson, who in this episode is constantly, like, putting aside moral choices or kindness or fairness for the sake of, like, I want to get paid well for this. And often, like, that character can seem kind of shitty or, like, greedy, like the money loving character in any ensemble. But what I liked is that Emerson he's not just greedy. It's just, he wants to pay his bills. He's not like, he's not Wario. He's not like, I gotta wean because I want to be big daddy money bucks. He just knows that, like, it's on average, days are pretty rough, and it's nice to have a little bit of extra cash lying around. And that is like why they describe that he wants to, get the money and like maybe even get the dog and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that about Emerson, is that he's not just greedy without a purpose. He's like, he has a goal in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about comfort.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
All of the wives were really interesting. They're also like cool. They're all personality wise very different. It's like not just a homogenous type of woman in the way that they look and in the way that they act. Simone is a black woman with a British accent, which is cool. And then it seems like she's the villain for a while, and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. All right. And then she's just a really badass hypnotist who was doing bad things for a good reason. She's like, I want to, because is the idea that she wants to help the wife not go to jail, and that's why they faked Emerson's death, not Emerson, but Snuppy's death. I was kind of confused.
I'm not sure. I didn't follow it 100%. I'm not sure what her motive was. Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately, like, the specifics of the case, I don't think are that important.
No.
But it is like the purpose of the episode is a meditation on like all the different kinds of people you could love, and that makes the wives a little bit stereotypical, or they're playing caricatures, but it does provide a way for us to have this meditation of like, because the Hillary wanting to have a one-of-a-kind dog raises the question of like, is love only special when it's like exclusive? You know what I mean? Like, is loving someone special because like they are the one person that you love,
right?
And it doesn't matter if they're perfect or if they have everything. It's just that you have chosen to like put your love into that person, and that's what makes them special. Because I think that what she was feeling was that she was not special because she was not the only one. Or is it like there are things to be loved about different people, and like you can love different people because you love them for different reasons,
You mentioned that the episode is about that stuff, and I agree, especially because even separate from the case and its drama, Ned is seeing all of this and taking it into his own situation.
Right, he's filtering it into his perception of Chuck and Olive.
Right, he's like, maybe there exists a world in which I could be in a relationship with Olive and Chuck, and one be romantic and the other one physical, or vice versa, or like, what do those words even mean anymore?
Yeah.
Like, maybe I could make that work. So I thought it was also kind of maybe telling or interesting is the word, I don't know, that the episode ends with him being happy that Chuck is the only person for him.
Yeah. Well,
do you think that's a rejection of the idea of polygamy then?
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. Because he doesn't love Olive.
Right.
Like there's a difference between having like an emotional love for someone and wanting to be physically satisfied with somebody else, mm-hmm. versus having like different kinds of emotional love for different kinds of people. So there's a difference there, I think. But what the Ned side of things raised for me was this question. So I'm reading this book right now.
Hell yeah,
books called Eros the Bittersweet. It's by this poet Anne Carson, and she's also this like Greek like scholar of Greek poetry and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is her like long essay meditation on like the concept of love in these like ancient Greek texts. Mm-hmm. And the thing that she's essentially identifying and arguing is that like love as a sensation is desire. It is like the simultaneity of wanting something and being resentful or frustrated, and upon achieving the thing, like love goes away.
Interesting.
Like love is the act of following the thing that you want, and once you have the thing, by definition, you are no longer wanting the thing because you have it. And so that has made me look at the situation with Ned and think about like, is he drawn to Chuck because it is a situation in which he can always be in the position of wanting and like be enraptured by the sort of exciting beginnings of wanting without having to confront finding out that, they're not compatible with each other or something like that. Because I think the reason that he isn't interested in Olive is because she wants him,
Because it'll just work.
Because it'll just like, yeah, she likes me and whatever. Like, I can have a relationship or I can do those things. But like, what I want to position myself in a situation where I'm like pining and desiring and hoping, because there's something about those emotions that even though they're frustrating, like it feels good. I wanted to read actually the preface to the book because I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, please do.
So I think Anne Carson wrote this preface, and she's describing a Kafka short story as a kind of like opening into what she's going to be talking about. So she says, Kafka's The Top is a story about a philosopher who spends his spare time around children so he can grab their tops in spin. To catch a top still spinning makes him happy for a moment in his belief that the understanding of any detail, that of a spinning top for instance, was sufficient for the understanding of all things. Disgust follows delight almost at once, and he throws down the top, walks away. Yet hope of understanding continues to fill him each time top-spinning preparations begin among the children. Quote, As soon as the top began to spin and he was running breathlessly after it, the hope would turn to certainty, but when he held the silly piece of wood in his hand, he felt nauseated. The story is about the delight we take in metaphor. A meaning spins, remaining upright on an axis of normalcy aligned with the conventions of connotation and denotation, and yet, to spin is not normal, and to dissemble normal uprightness by means of this fantastic motion is impertinent. What is the relation of impertinence to the hope of understanding, to delight? The story concerns the reason why we love to fall in love. Beauty spins and the mind moves. To catch beauty would be to understand how that impertinent stability in vertigo is possible. But no, delight need not reach so far. To be running breathlessly, but not yet arrived, is itself delightful, a suspended moment of living hope. Suppression of impertinence is not the lover's aim, nor can I believe this philosopher really runs after understanding. Rather, he has become a philosopher, that is, one whose profession is to delight in understanding, in order to furnish himself with pretexts for running after tops.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. So it speaks to, like, there's a reason that in fiction we love to tell love stories that start at the beginning. It's because falling in love and the delight of hoping but not knowing is something that we're just fixated on. And so Ned is choosing to remain in that story or in that mode because it's exhilarating. And there isn't a finality or an end to it. So he's okay being in this limbo because he gets to feel this sensation of love and desire without it ending.
I love the dream sequence in the beginning of this episode. I love dream sequences in general in shows. He, in the dream, is in the same bed as Chuck at first, and they know they're not supposed to touch, but they do, and he freaks out, but she doesn't die. And what is the first thing that his dream brain says that him and Chuck are going to do? Is they immediately have sex. They're like, we gotta get these clothes off. We gotta do this before it stops working. We gotta, like, that's the thing that we would do if we could finally touch each other. We would just bone. It'd be sweet.
Right.
And at first, that's like joyous to him. And then very quickly, she's like, all right, I gotta take this off. It's hot. And she peels her skin off. And she's Olive. And he's like, oh God. And freaks out. And it's this sort of nightmarish distortion of a fantasy of his, which is that, like, if I finally got the thing I want, would I be happy? And in a way, wasn't kissing Olive the thing I want? And do I even want that anymore? Is that what I'm looking for?
Right. Right.
And it's like, you're getting all of that in this, like, really well done dream sequence.
It asks the question of, in a relationship where you can't have everything, why is it that you want the thing that you can't have? Is it because you want the thing in and of itself, or is it because you want to experience the thing with the person you're with? Like in this relationship where he can't be physical, but he clearly has, like, physical lust. Does he want to
have sex, or does he want to have sex with Chuck?
Sure. Yeah, that's the way to sum it up. Does he just want to have sex regardless of who it is, or is it about the physical connection? And I think that's what he's trying to figure out in this episode. And what he lands on is it's not just like sex for sex sake.
Right. And again, the whole the polygamy plot reminds us that love comes in different forms, and even the final line of the show is the narrator talking about how Ned thought about the many different forms that love can take, each one precious and some more unique than others.
Mm-hmm.
Like unique being the very non-judgmental word here, as just like there are different forms and they're all special and it's great, but there are some that are, profound in ways that that he likes.
Yeah,
it's really great. I think this is the show firing on the right cylinders.
Yeah.
And like I said, all of the characters are interesting and fun. We get lots of great character work. Do you have any like lines or moments that you remember liking?
I just liked the wordplay of like the detective characters talking about my wife when they were referring to the like wife that they were assigned. I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Emerson storming in at the end. And he's like my wife did it. You know what I mean? It's not my. Let's go. I thought that was funny.
There was a scene that we talked about earlier in the episode where Emerson and Ned are talking in the pie hole, and then Emerson is talking about. Well, you can tell the people what he talks about.
Yeah. So this was a real line that he said. Emerson says, in reference to Ned's situation, some women love like gangsters. They're all like, "Ooh, baby, why you bleeding?" While they hide in the razor, all up in they weave.
Like, woo! We did that.
Yeah.
We just did all that.
Yeah.
The positive spin on that is Shy McBride is very good at that.
He delivers it very well. Like it is.
He slides in and out of it effortlessly.
Charismatic line, and he hits it in a way that you're like, oh, I'm supposed to laugh.
Yeah.
But it is, it's this question of like those words, are they being presented to us as like, is there a puppetry of Black identity that's happening right now for the sake of humor? Or is this meant to like we were talking about before when we were answering listener emails, like is this meant to be representative of a certain kind of speech that we don't see on television necessarily coming out of the voices of characters who have like power and authority? I don't know how to answer that. My gut reaction was like, they're trying to take African American vernacular and make like a joke out of it. So yeah, that was my gut response anyway.
Right. Again, gut reaction. I like this. It made me laugh. It's funny, but there is something relatable about being surrounded by people who don't look like you and then slipping into the way that you talk with people who do look like you. Does that make sense? Like I speak Arabic in addition to speaking English, and sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes I will either say something in a way that makes more sense in Arabic or just use the Arabic word for something because things don't translate well all the time. And that is, or I talk the way that I've been talking to like my childhood friends to people, and I'm like, oh, like that sounds weird to other people, and it leads to a sort of like a difference between me and the people around me that is funny. So I think it's just that. But again, like using that as a joke in a show is not something you see a lot, and so I think we're kind of not sure how to feel about it.
Yeah, it's just hard to parse because it is a Black character who's written by presumably white writers, although we haven't looked at that. Two white characters for presumably a mostly white audience.
Right.
And so with those factors in mind, it's hard to feel that this is like a natural human moment of Emerson talking in a way that's comfortable to him because he's a fictional character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if Chi McBride was giving an interview and he said that, that's different,
Yeah, yep. Exactly.
So anyway, so that's that.
Both of the credited writers on this episode, the Creases, are both white, just for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
But alas, that's one scene in an episode. I don't have much else though, because like they find out who the murderer is, and they get her out of the they get the girl who didn't do it out of jail. The girl who did do it goes to jail. and the dog is safe. Yay! I'm glad we didn't lose the dog.
Yeah, that's nice. Dogs are nice.
Dogs are very nice. I was at the beach today and I kept seeing dogs and I was like, I want to play with dogs. They're just good. And the final scene, I mentioned here that there's some sincerity out of Olive, who is unaware that maybe making Ned happy means being with him. Huh. Oh no, sincerity from, is this Chuck or Olive? Did I actually put the wrong character name here? I might have.
No, there's a scene at the end where Ned has kind of been giving her the cold shoulder and been awkward all episode. And then he tries to apologize for it, and Olive's like, it's okay. And she's willing to kind of back off, but I think is still, the narrator says something about how she's still holding on to hope that him being happy could be with her, but is maybe starting to accept that might not be the case. Mm-hmm. That seemed to be what that scene was driving at.
Yeah. I love it. Get it? Because it shows my love. I have cultural references.
Great.
Saw, dude. Yeah. God, I love that moment in every podcast. Just the cacophony. Mm-hmm. This episode marks the second of many Alfred Hitchcock references. Yeah, super duper. You mentioned this with the outfits. Emerson's whole, like, in his dream, subconsciously realizing that A, he has a crush on Simone, and B, she had to do with the dog's murder because she was wearing the dog's collar around her neck. First of all, fascinating. Second of all, that's such a weird scene where it's like zooming in really tightly on his face. That shot is a reference to Vertigo.
Yeah,
is what this trivia is saying. That was really weird. I guess whatever. These guys really like Alfred Hitchcock, and using a dream sequence to explore that is appropriate. But it was
I thought it was cool. I liked it.
Yeah. I was just like very jarring. I'm like, oh, this show's like, well, this episode is normal. We're all talking about polygamy and wives and love, and then like, also it's getting psychedelic real briefly.
Right.
And then Olive says that she had a horse named the Pie because she wanted to be like Elizabeth Taylor, which is a reference to the movie National Velvet, based on the novel by Enid Bagnold. Pie is the name of the horse that belongs to Velvet, who's played by Elizabeth Taylor.
I see.
Would it be fun to watch old movies like that?
Like together?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always fun watching things with you, but period. But, I mean, like...
Some of them, yeah. Some of them are good.
Because I know, like, I feel like so many creators that we like and respect put references to that era of old films, and I've seen so few of them that I'm just like, should I go back and watch stuff like that? I don't know.
Yeah, educate yourself, bro.
Yeah. I should take a film class, says Alan, who has taken 2 film classes. Well, okay, one of them was detective fiction in film, but anyways. That is what I got for this episode, big boy.
Thanks, big boy.
I wonder if people think it's weird that we call each other big boy.
I don't think so.
You don't think it's weird, or you don't think they think it's weird?
Both.
Yes. Great. Magellan, what are the kids going to be watching next week with us for DaisyChatz?
Next week, we're watching 2 episodes of Pushing Daisies, Season 1, Episode 7, and Season 1, Episode 8. The first episode, Episode 7, is called Smell of Success. The trio is called on to investigate the case of Anita Gray, loyal assistant to the olfactory scientist and aspiring novelist Napoleon Linez. Sitting at her desk, Anita was leaning over to use her heightened sense of smell on a scratch and sniff book when suddenly an explosion erupted from the book, completely engulfing her. Additional attempts on Linez's life and incriminating evidence leads to the suspicion of Oscar Vibenius, Paul Rubens, former lab partner and bitter rival of Linez. This rivalry leads to the belief that Vibenius is trying to prevent Linez's book from being published. Elsewhere, Olive attempts to get Lily and Vivian back in the water, and Vibenius begins an obsession with Chuck.
Oh, boy.
All right.
I just noticed something also while we're here.
What's that?
There are 3 episodes left of Pushing Daisy Season 1.
Oh, shoot. What should we do?
Do you want to do a triple or do you want to do a single?
I think let's do just 2 next week and then do a single.
Do a single? All right, sounds good.
Yeah. Then we're watching Season 1, Episode 8, Bittersweets. Emerson, Ned, and Chuck investigate the death of Tony DiNapoli. Hey,
what the spaghetti?
Who appears to have been strangled by a woman. Whoa.
However,
when Ned brings Tony back to life to find out who killed him, Tony claims it was burly Bruce Carter via the hands of his girlfriend, who is a real doll. Meanwhile... Business at the Pie Hole plummets when a new candy store run by Dilly, Molly Shannon, and Billy Balsam, Mike White, opens in town, with the situation becoming more complicated when Ned discovers one of the owners dead in a large vat of candy. And Alfredo, Raul Esparza, continues to pursue an oblivious Olive who herself continues to pine after the pie maker.
Oh my God, Magellan.
Yeah, what's up?
First of all, Raul Esparza, I know from Hannibal because all of my friends who like Hannibal are like madly, truly in love with him. He's very handsome. He's a very good actor, and I'm very excited to see him in a show.
Awesome.
Yeah, awesome sauce him, if you will. Will you?
Yeah, I will.
Thanks. Let's take it. Wait, Magellan, my phone's gonna run out of battery. Hold on, let's take a break to go to the plug zone. Oh my God.
Let's do that.
Have you seen that one Vine? Where the stakes is high Vine?
Maybe.
Come on, man, we gotta get out of here. Stakes is high. I believe you mean stakes are high. No, dude, stakes is high on meth. What's going on? It's so good. I can't deliver it perfectly, but the way he says, "What's going on?" is like,
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
That's great.
Yeah, this is the plug zone where we plug our shit.
Hell yeah.
You can follow the show on Twitter at ChatzPod. That's ChatZPod on Twitter. You can also email us at chatspod@gmail.com if you want to send us feedback, questions, or comments. And if you like the show, go ahead and toss us a couple of bucks. You can do that over at patreon.com/chatspod, where every month, if you become a donor, you will get a commentary track for a movie of our choosing that you can listen to. Hey, we're going to be recording the first one of those very soon.
Very soon, yep.
So get your pledges in now. So help support the show that you like. And spread the word. Review it, discuss it, share it, recommend it if you like it. Please. But John, where can people find you on the online?
They can find me online on Twitter at JustAFluke, that's JUSTAPFLUKE. They can also listen to another show with my voice called Adulthood. You can find that on adulthood.simplecast.fm. Alan, what about you?
Meow. I'm on Twitter at Alan Ibrahim. That's ALLENIBRAHIM. Taking a little break from Twitter over the summer, so if you want to follow that and make my number go up.
Idea.
Yes, extremely good idea. Thank you. You can follow it. I'd love to come back and see the number go up, but you won't get if you want to actually get at me on Twitter, I check ChatSpot, the account. So I'm there. And if you want to listen to me on other podcasts, I'm on 2 other ones regularly. One is Fireside Friends, which is found at firesidefriends.net. That's where me and my friends Ryan and Katie discuss pop culture, how it affects our lives, and we come together to discuss a shared experience once a month. And you can also listen to me on The Garnet Wager, which is found on scanlinemedia.com. And wherever you listen to podcasts, that is the show where my friend Six and I talk about the Korean game show The Genius. And for season 2, we've been having a lot of fun playing Fantasy Genius, where, like in a fantasy sports game or fantasy bachelorette, we pick players and kind of give them points and take away points for different behavior and actions. And we've been playing along with the audience and the community, and it's actually a ton of fun. It's a very good show.
It sounds really fun.
That, dear listener, is what we have for you this week. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of DaisyChatz. Keep on living.